Well, we brought you breaking news at the top of the hour. The president's big jobs speech is next week. It comes as we are seeing the White House under growing pressure from all sides on the state of the economy. Here, take a look at this, is just some of yesterday's White House press briefing.
President, and you've made the case that the president inherited this economy. When does it become his economy?
Well, he's responsible every day for this economy. He absolutely understands that and makes it clear. I don't think anybody, except the most fervent partisan, would suggest that the 8 million jobs lost because of this recession were lost because of actions that this president took. Those jobs were lost within the 4 months, in the months prior to his swearing in, his inauguration, and in the months thereafter. Since this president's economic policies had a chance to take effect, there have been more than 2 million private sector jobs created. The economy has grown, albeit not at a pace that satisfies him or any of us here in the administration. And that's just a matter of absolute record and fact, indisputable. The fact is that we inherited a terrible situation, a terrible economy.
Well, that was from the president's press secretary, and we heard a very similar message from the president himself while appearing on a popular radio talk show earlier in the day. Listen here.
We've got a lot of stuff that needs to get done. We've got to do it, unfortunately, at a time when money's tight. George Bush left us $1 trillion deficit, and so it's a lot harder to climb out of this hole. So, is the blame President Bush game an effective argument nearly 3 years after President Obama was elected? Leslie Marshall and Lars Larson join me now. Both are syndicated radio hosts, and Leslie is also a Fox News contributor. Leslie, listening to the folks on the right, they're getting a little tired of hearing that. In particular, the comment that he can't get us out of the economic ditch because he inherited a $1 trillion deficit. I mean, he's added $4 trillion to the debt. Is that disingenuous on his part?
Well, quite frankly, I have to say, and I know I'm the liberal Democrat here, left or right, I don't like when anybody constantly says, it was his fault, it was their fault, don't blame me, you have to take responsibility. But what I heard Jay Carney say is that the president does take responsibility and knows it's his responsibility every single day. It's a fact, regardless of who was president and his predecessor, and it happened to be George W. Bush, that this situation was inherited. Does that make it Bush's fault solely and entirely? Absolutely not. Any more than it is currently solely to be blamed on this president. A president, left or right, has to deal with the economy they have. And the president did inherit a bad economy, but I would agree you can't just keep saying this is why we're where we're at today. Americans left, right, center, and elsewhere need to hear how we're going to get out. And of course, as impatient Americans, we want to hear when. Well,
Lars, Leslie may feel that way, but according to the polls, this argument it's got some traction because AP did a poll and 51% of people said that President Bush is almost all or at least significantly to blame for the economy. So is President Obama onto something to keep mentioning Bush over and over and over while then, taking the next step of saying, but here's what I'm doing?
Megan, like it or not, most Americans get most of their information from watching television. Unfortunately, not enough watching Fox News. The rest of the mainstream media carries a lot of water for President Obama. They make excuses for him, and the way they cover this story helps shape American public opinion. When you look at those numbers and see 51% blaming Bush, if you heard a nightly, refrain that it's Bush's fault, and you saw people accepting the president instead of challenging the president's argument and saying, no, you've owned this economy for 2.5 years. In the fall or late summer of '09, you said, this is my job.
Okay,
Give
but wait.
me the job.
Let me jump in. I want to ask you a follow-up, Lars, and then I'm going to go back to Leslie. Why is it not President Bush's fault if, as the White House now points out, the economy was shedding 700,000 jobs a month? January of '09, it was 820,000. February, 726,000. March, almost 800,000 again. That's what it was shedding when President Obama took office. And now we're not shedding those numbers anymore. We are growing, although at a snail's pace. But his point is, I've reversed the tide. Respond to that, Lars.
Well, he's changed some things, but I don't think that's a result of President Obama's policies. I'd make the argument that in the last 2 years, he's lost a net 2.4 million jobs. And the fact is the economy isn't growing anywhere near fast enough to make net gains. If you look at the number of new unemployment filings, it's gone down, but there are still hundreds of thousands of new unemployment filings. And the president's own policies are partly to blame. His regulatory policies are killing jobs. His health care plan is killing jobs. You can go right through the list of things that have created uncertainty, and it all falls back on President Obama. He can't blame George Bush for creating the uncertainty that he created by giving business owners and bankers a reason to sit on the sidelines and say, we're not spending money until we know what's coming next.
Okay,
and what seems to be coming next is more regulation and taxes.
Let me get Leslie to weigh in on that.
Lars, for 8 years, I heard all of you guys and gals on the right basically blaming Bill Clinton. I think you still blame Bill and Hillary Clinton whenever you get the chance. When Bush took office, the unemployment rate was a little higher than 4%. When he left 8 years later, it was closer to 9%, still hovering at 9.1% today. Unemployment and the jobs that came out today, a number of jobs, the majority of jobs that were lost were federal jobs, which you on the right want to cut. You should be happy, Lars. These jobs were cut. So you know, with these cuts, that unemployment number would go up, as I and many of the Democrats have been saying for months. And that's exactly what happened. So like I said, I don't think it's effective to keep blaming Bush. I do know the American people believe that Bush is partially responsible with those numbers. No one person, left or right, is to blame. This is a collective issue of blame when it comes to Wall Street.
And I just want to clarify, according to a
individuals.
quick search, I think the unemployment when President Obama took office was 7.6%. So it was not at 9,
yes,
and it went up as close to 10. And it's been hovering, Leslie, at 9% at least for 25 of the past 27 months. All right, that's the problem that he's got in terms of seeking re-election and turning the country around, right? Because it's fine to say I inherited a bad situation and I've stemmed the bleeding. You know, I've tried to stem the bleeding, but the point for the American people now is it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And President Obama can say, I agree, it's not good enough, but ultimately they're going to hold somebody responsible, are they not? Leslie, then Lars, then I got to go.
All right.
Yes, and they're obviously holding the president responsible, and he said that in that radio interview as well, that, you know, when things go well, he gets the credit. When things go bad, he gets the blame. The economy is not going well right now, growing at more than a snail's pace, so he's getting the blame for that. And I'm sorry, my statistics were 8.4%, and I actually got that from the government. So, sorry.
Well, honestly, I just did a quick search online while we were talking, so that's easily confirmable, but I don't think it was 9%.
I trust
Go ahead,
yours.
Lars.
Fact is, saying that you take responsibility but not doing the things to fix the problem doesn't mean anything. But all he's doing is saying, yeah, I'm responsible. Fine, then hold him 100% responsible. And thank goodness we don't have that dumb Rick Perry running the economy, or we'd have a tough time finding enough workers to fill all the jobs. You know, the fact is that this president is doing things that are detrimental to the economy still, and he still hasn't wised up to the fact that his policies in the Gulf and in energy and in regulation and in financial policy are killing jobs.
Okay, guys, got to leave it at that. Thank you both so much, Leslie and Lars.